me never shovel with I would walk or I push my wife in the wheelchair in the street. I push my wife in the wheelchair in the streets in the snow, and they shovel it. And then the mayor there, who's been on that focus, he said for the business part, they must shovel or be fined.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Brandy,
I'm ready to follow your lead, so.
let's bring everybody up, and we're going to get it going. So if you guys will be here, we'll have the camera out here. You guys are on the air. You're live. All right, welcome everybody. Prior to our city council meeting tonight, we've got a couple of proclamations and some really important work. And I've got Brandy up here, and she's going to talk to us real quickly about Self-Care Month, and then I've got the proclamation. So I'm turning it over to you. Here we go.
Do I have to keep this on?
Yeah,
Okay.
or you can take it off. I'll get out.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Brandy Miller, and I am the co-founder and president of Black Women for Healthy Living. We are a Christ-centered wellness movement for Black women in the greater Des Moines area. And this is our birthday month as well. And we are celebrating 1 year. And also we are practicing self-care. So the proclamation says it all for us, or a good portion of it. So we'll let that be read and speak for itself.
Brandy, thank you. I'll move this out just a little bit. And our proclamation reads as follows. Whereas since 1619, when the first black women arrived on the shores of Virginia, black women have been taking care of their captors and their families and their own children and families, their communities and their churches. Historically and currently, black women put others' needs before their own, resulting in trauma and damage to their health and well-being, which affects every aspect of their lives. And whereas black women are disproportionately affected by heart disease, stroke, diabetes, breast and cervical cancers, fibroids, premature high-risk deliveries, sickle cell crisis, sexually transmitted disease, and mental health issues, and whereas healthcare disparities disproportionately affect black women more than any other group of women in the United States, and black women are dying at an alarming rate from the preventative diseases and unresolved health issues. And whereas it is imperative to bridge the gap between black women and healthcare through education and by promoting the awareness of possible health risks and the importance of self-care, health awareness, and healthy living. And whereas studies show that practicing self-care is first and foremost essential to physical health and mental health well-being, however, self-care is often neglected, and it is even harder for black women to participate due to superwoman expectations. And whereas the benefit of self-care includes reducing diabetes, heart disease, stress, and symptoms of depression, practicing daily self-care is the single most powerful thing a black woman can do to take care of her health and well-being. And by communicating clearly, speaking up for herself, and saying yes to her health. And whereas black women for healthy living will continue to work to empower black women in the greater Des Moines area to practice healthy living, resulting in a strong mind, body, and spirit. Now, therefore, I, the mayor of the city of Des Moines, on behalf of our city council and all of our residents, do hereby proclaim the month of September of 2021 as Self-Care Month. Brandy, thank you so much. All right.
I just also wanted to say that we're going to be having a blood drive on September 29th. It's a Wednesday at Corinthian Baptist Church. There is an increase cases of sickle cell patients coming in needing pain treatment into the hospitals, and what helps them is blood. And so we would like to get as many people out in the community to give blood, and Red Cross will be our drawer. And it'll be September 29th from 11 to 6 p.m. Thank you.
And Brandy, as you sit down, I want to give another plug to the work that the women in the community have done, and essentially a couple of times this year through Corinthian, is they've worked and even to have a vaccination day up there where they, I believe, we vaccinated 1,113 people in our community. And they did such a fabulous job, and I want to thank everybody for working on that as well. And this also helps black women and the community as we try to help everybody else as well. So thank you for all the work. All right, we had a couple of the representatives that were called out and were not able to be here this evening, but we have one other. This is Latino Heritage Month. And the proclamation reads as follows. September 15th to October 15th is recognized as National Hispanic Heritage Month, which is a time to honor the invaluable ways Latinos contribute to our nation's economy and growth, celebrate their diverse cultures, and to work towards a stronger, more inclusive, and more prosperous society for all. And whereas Latinos are individuals living in the United States whose ancestors originate from their Caribbean islands, Central America, Mexico, and South America, and many trace their roots to the culture of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, including the Arawaks, the Aztecs, the Incas, the Maya, and the Taínos. The European colonization, or to the Africans who were brought as slaves to the New World. And whereas Latinos speak multiple languages such as Creole, English, French, indigenous language and dialects, Portuguese, Spanish, and the term Hispanic refers to Latinos in the United States whose ancestors originate from countries where Spanish is the primary language. And whereas we honor the enriching history and invaluable contribution of Latinos in Des Moines, Iowa, since before statehood, we are recognizing the history and the countless contributions that Latino Iowans have made over the years to the nation, to the state, and to our great city of Des Moines. And whereas 5,000 years of rich culture and continuous settling of Latino roots now represent a significant and fast-growing demographic of the city, which, by the way, right now is about 13.6% of our population, with a promise of continuing to be the fastest and biggest growing ethnic group. Now, therefore, I, the mayor of the city of Des Moines, on behalf of our city council and our residents, do hereby proclaim the month of September, that month between September 15th and October 15th, as Latino Heritage Month, and encourage all of our residents to celebrate the diverse heritage and culture and continue our efforts to create a world that is more just, compassionate, and equitable for all. Thank you. It's a little after 5, and so we need to get started with our city council meeting. But before we do, I've got sort of another thing that I'm concerned about, and I know our council is, and I know a lot of the residents of our cities are. Before we begin, I'd like to say a few words about the situation we face in our community and across the state as it relates to the pandemic. It's been 18 months ago this week that I issued a state of emergency in Des Moines related to our community spread of COVID-19. At that time, we had but a few cases in the state. That number today sits at nearly 460,000 and continues to surge. Since this began, COVID has killed more than 6,300 Iowans, and with 1 out of 10 right here in Polk County. Information that I received today from medical experts show that patients with COVID-related symptoms are increasing in our clinics, urgent care centers, and hospitals. And that's why I'm asking each of you, by the way, to thank all of our healthcare workers when you see them. They're fatigued, they're frustrated as they battle both the pandemic and misinformation. We are all indebted to their commitment to keep our community safe. The aggravating part for me, and I know for many of you too, is that this is preventable. Vaccinations are safe, effective, and readily available. That's why I strongly urge you to do the only responsible thing and get one. Do it for yourself, your loved ones, and our community. And follow those CDC guidelines. Mask up, social distance, and mask up especially when you're inside. And together we'll get through this. Thank you. All right, again, out of necessity and direction from everybody, I think it's important that as we start, and as I said, due to our increased community transmission of COVID in Polk County, we've implemented a face covering requirement in all of our city buildings. The requirement applies to both staff and the visiting public and includes attendance at our council meetings. So I want to thank all of you for wearing the mask this evening. If you do not have a face covering, one will be provided. The public is hereby notified that the City Council will not tolerate disruption of its business meetings, and essentially that's what we do here. We have business meetings, and especially on our consent agenda, these are things that have been on our debate through the year and with our around the community about items and how we're going to spend taxpayer money and what our priorities are, and we broadcast work, and in times when we can, Mr. Manager and members of the council, we actually go out and listen and get community input, often from hundreds of our citizens, to tell us what their priorities are before we do the budget. Often on these consent items, these are just follow-ups and votes on something that has already been approved. So we welcome germane comments from the public at the appropriate time, but this is a council business meeting, and the council needs to conduct the people's business, and the council has rules that are validly adopted under Iowa law, and those rules will be followed. Anyone engaging in disruptive comment in the council chambers or the Great Hall will result in those being disruptive being ordered to leave the building and being denied readmittance for the remainder of the day. No person will be permitted to stand in the council chamber during the council sessions between the audience seats or on them, and the council members, except for persons addressing the council at the speaker's microphone and only after being recognized. All persons desiring to address the council may do so only when recognized, but the council reserves the right to limit the speaker's time and order in which the speakers may address the council. Under section 2-70 under the city code, it is illegal to interrupt any person who is addressing the council except by a council member, and it is illegal to disrupt the council meeting. Everyone in attendance has First Amendment rights, and any disruptive conduct by one person or group impinges on the rights of others present. So disruptive conduct will not be tolerated. If the meeting is disrupted, the public speaking portion of the meeting may be moved to the next in-person meeting, which is not disrupted. Those who disrupt the meeting will not be called under in the remainder of the meeting and will be ordered to leave the building and may be cited or arrested for disorderly conduct, trespass, or interfering with the good order of the meeting or other applicable charges. And with that, let's call this meeting to order, and I will ask the clerk to please take roll.
County.
Here.
Bozen.
Here.
Voss.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Westergaard. Mandelbaum.
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
Your Honor, we have a quorum.
All right, item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. Let me quickly check here and see what I have for any amendments. All right, on the consent agenda, items 3 through 34 tonight, item 4B, 4E is withdrawn. 821 Square Liquor and Nacho Tequila's inspections are incomplete, and 4MMM and 4NNN are added. It's a special event, Your Private Bar, October 2nd for a wedding reception. NNN Family Center Network, subject to final approval. So those are the changes on that. And on the consent items, I'm voting no on item 5, and Councilmember Mandelbaum wishes to speak on item 30.
I'll move item 2, Your Honor.
Okay. Item 2 has been moved. Any discussion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none. We've gone over any changes in the consent items. I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll
Items
move.
3 through 43 tonight.
I'll move the consent agenda.
All right, the consent agenda has been moved.
And if anybody-
Yep. I'd ask the clerk, have any members of the public send us a request to speak on any of the consent items?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Council, anything else? All right, I ask everybody to vote.
Your Honor, that's 6 yes, motion carries.
All right, this takes us to item 30. Yes.
The rule change is required to go to the hearing first, and then the items from the consent will be considered after the hearing.
Okay. I have to constantly be re-informed. Our rule changes require we go straight to the hearing items now, and we'll come back to the speaking item that Councilmember Mandelbaum has asked to be pulled, item 30. So let's go straight to the hearing items. Our first hearing item is item 44, and again, we've got a couple of quick rules here. For the hearings this evening, we have one zoning item, which is item 46. And the applicant for the hearing on 45 has requested the hearing to be continued to 18, so there'll be no comments on that item this evening. We also have one conveyance hearing. As a reminder, for the zoning item only, which is 46, we will hear from the parties in interest first and then from the general public. The parties in interest for the zoning are the applicant and those within 250 feet of the property to be rezoned to whom the city has sent notices. After all those parties in interest have commented, we will open it up to any member of the public for a germane comment. To add in recognizing the parties in interest to the zoning item, I will ask everyone to not step to the microphone unless they are zoning applicant or live within 250 feet and have received a notice. Anyone who approaches the mic before it is their time will be compared to that mailing list, and if not on the list will be considered disruptive and will not be recognized for the remainder of the meeting and will be required to leave the building. So please, please wait until I call on the general public for the zoning items, or you won't be called on. After all the parties in interest have been called upon, general public comment at not to exceed 1 minute per person to a maximum of 7 minutes will be called upon for germane comment unless the hearing is ended sooner for failure to make germane comments. For other hearings this evening, any interested person may make germane comments as not to exceed 1 minute per person to a maximum of 5 minutes per hearing unless the hearing is ended sooner for failure to make germane comments or when comments cease. For the continuance, no public comment will be had, and so at any rate, just wanted to let everybody know those details. Our first item again is item 44. And item 44 is on conveyance of excess city-owned property located west of and adjoining 2000 Leyner Street to Michelle Scaglione for $100. And council, any comments on this one? Nothing from the council. I'll ask now for germane comments from the general public. Anybody want to make any comment on this? Again, this conveyance of around 2000 Leyner Street. All right, seeing none.
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move item 44.
Item 44 has been moved. And without any other comment, I'll ask everybody to vote, please.
Your Honor, that's 6 yes, motion carries.
All right, the next item is item 45. It's continuing the hearing on the competitive bid process for the sale and redevelopment of 503 Southeast 12th Street in the Metro Center Urban Renewal Project Area and the receipt of redevelopment proposal from Des Moines Climate Controlled Self-Storage, LLC. Mark Bockenstedt is the owner, and we're going to continue that hearing to October 18th. Could we have a motion to do so?
I'll move item 45.
Item 45 has been moved, and I ask everybody to vote.
Your Honor, that's 6 yes, motion carries.
All right. Item 46 is on the proposed amendment to zoning ordinance to provide for the allowance of outdoor storage as an accessory to the use of self-storage, self-service storage within the 11 and or the I-1 and I-2 industrial districts. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above, and B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by our city manager and requires 6 votes. So I'll ask if there are any germane comments, or Mr. Manager, do you have any comment on this? Okay.
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I'll move 46A and B.
All right, 46 A and B have been moved. Any comment, council? Seeing none, ask everybody to vote.
Your Honor, that's 6 yes, motion carries.
All right, thank you. That completes our hearings at 5:16. Let's go back to item 30. Item 30 was asked by Councilmember Mandelbaum. This is approving releasing items, covenants, and restrictions of development agreement and releasing pilot agreement obligation for the old Central Fire Station number 1 property at 900 Mulberry Street, Council Communication number 21-395. Councilmember Mandelbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak to this item. One, to thank the Transition Board for all the work that they did to try and preserve this space, to deal with what was a challenging situation financially, and get this space coming out on the other end with, I think, a very positive result. I think we're all excited to see Abbott Properties come into our community and to keep the purpose of this space and to reactivate this space and bring it back to a strong and productive community use. We're excited that Malo will be able to continue as the anchor tenant, and that they're going to be redeveloping the site and getting it back and marketed for commercial entertainment and arts and cultural uses. So we're thrilled to see this moving forward. There's one piece I did want to say. I know folks met this weekend with neighbors over at City Lofts, and And that was, I think, a productive conversation from the reports back that I got from folks who were there. I want to offer a friendly amendment to this item because one of the requests was that during the due diligence period, the request from the neighbors was that Abbott Properties meet with interested neighbors and parties just to discuss the proposed redevelopment and operations plan for the property. And so I wanted to add that to this item. Just to be clear, the request is that we're requesting Abbott Properties to meet with the interested parties from adjacent residential properties to discuss the proposed redevelopment and operations plan, and that those topics can include but aren't limited to hours of operation, security, lighting, parking. And my understanding is that there's openness to that. And I think that will help continue to move this process forward in a way that's constructive for everyone and will lead to the best long-term result. So with that, I appreciate everyone's effort on this. Look forward to seeing this property reactivated again. And also, for the first time in, I think, 85 years, back on the property tax rolls. So those are all positive steps. And with that, I'll move item 30.
Right.
Your Honor, that's 6 yes, motion carries.
Takes us to item 47. Item 47 is amending Chapter 114 of the Municipal Code regarding traffic regulation changes as follows. This was Council Communication Number 21-386. A is a proposed code changes to match field conditions at the following locations. One is the north side of East Court Avenue, east of Water Street. 2 is the south side of Grand Avenue between 16th Street and 17th Street. 3 is the west side of 16th Street between High Street and Linden Street. 4 is the west side of 14th Street between Grand Avenue and Ingersoll. 5 is the east side of 12th Street between High Street and Woodland Street. 6 is the east side of 11th Street between Mulberry Street and Cherry Street. 7 is the east side of 10th Street between Grand Avenue and Locust Street. 8 is the east side of 8th Street between Grand Avenue and High Street. 9 is the east side of 7th Street between Grand Avenue and High Street. 10 is the east side of 6th Avenue between Grand Avenue and Watson Powell Jr. Way. And 11 is the east side of Grand Avenue between 6th Avenue and 7th Street. B is a code modification related to the vacation of Raccoon Street between Southeast 4th Street and Southeast 5th Street. And C are some speed limit changes. One would be Williams Street between East University Avenue and Williams Court. And 2 is Williams Court between Williams Street and East 42nd Street. And 3 is East 42nd Street between Williams Court and Easton Boulevard. So having said that, is there anyone who'd like to make any comment on this? Council? These are just changes.
I'll move 47A, B, and C,
Okey doke.
and waive,
Including A,
and
1 through 11.
according to our rules, so we can waive,
Yeah.
and then waive any other,
Council Rule 42A.
42A,
Yeah.
yes.
And on C to include 1, 2, and 3. I think, right, Connie?
Right, Connie? You included C 1 through 3, right?
Yes, mm-hmm.
All right.
Your Honor, that's 6 yes, motion carries.
All right, let's move to item 48. 48 is amending Chapter 78 regarding mobile food vendors on streets during special events. A is a final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the city manager and requires 6 votes. Council Communication Number 21-396. Any comment, Scott? Okey-doke. Council? Any thoughts or a motion?
Just wanted to clarify, a special event could be a wedding, a retirement party, an annual event for employees. Is that correct? I would gather this is going to pass. I just want to say thank you for expediting this in, what, maybe a month or so? So thanks so much.
I'll move 48A.
All right. Item's been moved.
Your Honor, that's 6 yes, motion carries.
All right, item 49. Councilmember Gray requests to speak on semi-tractor and trailers parking on residential streets. Councilmember Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. This has come up, I think that's not in Ward 1, but I think it's pretty much a citywide problem. It started out about 2 years ago when I started getting complaints from people living in the Merle Hay area along 54th Street, north of Douglas. Semis were parked right there in the residential area, causing, in addition to tearing up the streets, takes up parking spaces and cuts the line of vision off. Then I got a call from a person in 62nd Street, just south of Merle Hay Mall. 2 semis parked on his residential street. Then the one that I've witnessed the most is on Euclid Avenue, just west of Beaver. There's usually 3 semi-tractors parked there in a row. So something is pretty much up here. Now, the one that finally got me was over the Labor Day weekend, a full semi-tractor semi was parked on my street on Franklin between 60th and 61st. So when I'm trying to figure out what is going on here, if there's something going on at the truck stops that forcing the people out, but I checked with our fine legal team, and I got an opinion that there is an ordinance that prohibits parking of semis and tractor trailers on residential streets. It is 114-632, and it states, no person shall park a motor truck having a freight capacity greater than 1 ton, or any trailer, semi-trailer, tractor, road tractor, or truck tractor unit at any time upon any portion of a street abutting property zone N1 to N5 or NX1 to NX3. Occupancy is defined in Chapter 134 of the Code. Now, here's where the whole catch comes. When I call, and I don't call Sue Ann, I call police dispatch. They don't know anything about it. That's pretty frustrating. So I have to read them this section here, and I think they're reluctant to send people out because the B portion of this says, a person who violates any provision of this section shall pay a fine of $15. Well, what's that? If I'm getting charged more at the truck stop, that $15 a day is chump change for me. So what I'd like to do, and I had Linda show me some pictures of semis parked over on Easton as well. This is a citywide problem. What I'd like to do is take it back to the legal team and the city manager. Let's get a more appropriate fine that's going to put some teeth into this. We don't need them tearing up our streets. We don't need to provide free parking spots for these people at the expense of the taxpayers of Des Moines. And I'd like to see that we get the word to police dispatch, because that's the proper route to report this, and not have the dispatchers disregard it because it's only a $15 fine. Let's not even play with it. So I'd like to have those 2 things taken forward. And I'd like to make a motion that
So we'll forward to
receive
city
and file.
manager for input from appropriate departments and come back with something that,
I'd be happy to.
okay.
Bill, just a quick question. If it's just a trailer park, how would they find who parked the trailer there?
That's a good portion of it, but that's what Linda's picture shows. It shows people parking the trailer portion of the tractor trailer on the street and leaving it. Now, the ones that I've seen, they park the trailer somewhere, but then they have the tractor parked on the street, and it's the same ones over and over again. And usually they're all over the weekend. So I'd like to get something that puts a little teeth into it. And bring that back in a month?
Okay, that's the motion.
Yeah.
Your Honor, that's 6 yes, motion carries.
All right. Our next item is approving items related to the Central Iowa Water Trails project involving the City of Des Moines, Central Iowa Water Trails LLC, the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, Polk County Conservation, and the Iowa Confluence Water Trails as follows. A 2080 agreement with Central Iowa Water Trails LLC for the operation and maintenance of the City of Des Moines Regional Water Trail access points and downtown water trail locations, Council Communication number 21-398. B is an amendment regarding the build grant to the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, Central Iowa Water Trails LLC, Polk County Conservation, and receiving and filing project plans and specifications, Council Communication number 21-399. And C is the appointment to the Iowa Confluence Water Trails ICON Board of Directors and recommendations for the city representatives on the ICON Executive Committee and Great Outdoors Foundation Golf ICON Investment Selection Committee, Council Communication number 21-397. I'll ask council any comments here, or Mr. Manager, would you like to make a couple opening ones?
Mayor, if I could, thank you. So I want to start off by a great appreciation and thank you to all that were involved to get us to this point. There's still quite a bit of work left, but there are some enormous agreement aspects to this that have taken months to work through. And so in particular, I want to thank Pam Cooksey from our office and CMO. Over 10 other employees have been involved from the engineering department, Parks and Rec, a little bit on Public Works, and enormous amount of time on the legal department as well. This has been a huge effort. It's been a great project and vision that's been presented to us. It's going to be a great amenity for the community. And so I also want to thank the private side, the Great Outdoors Foundation, and the other members, especially of the executive committee, that have dedicated an enormous amount of their time as well on getting us to this point. There are several other governmental agencies that have been involved throughout at the federal level and the state level, and obviously the county as well. So it's taken an awful lot of coordination and fortitude to get us to this point. And so I'm just incredibly appreciative that we've been able to do that and work through all those concerns to get them to these agreements. Available for questions. Thank you.
Scott, I'd like to answer, and I know maybe a couple of the council members would like to say something, but to your point on all the work of our staff, and I've got to tell you, without their insight and understanding of all the detail with the Army Corps of Engineers and FEMA, and even over on the Raccoon side, as we had to deal with the issues around the DICO property and EPA and all that, I've got to tell you, we could not have gotten to where we are without the experience and the work over literally, quite frankly, decades to understand those rules. So I want to thank our staff and second your point of support and thanks to all of them for what they've done. And certainly working closely with the MPO and the Water Trails Group and Polk County Conservation. I mean, that's how these kind of things get done. It's when we're all working together. And we've seen such great work in and around Des Moines, whether it's the Botanical Center or it's the zoo, and how the city works with private organizations and have done so successfully through the years. And that's what makes Des Moines a great place. So anybody else, any comments?
Mayor, I'll just reiterate some of your comments. I know we've worked on this for a good many months, all of us have. And so I would reiterate that our staff has done a fantastic job getting us to the point, all of us, along with the MPO, along with ICON and Water Trails. And I see Maggie sitting out there, and she's been a big part of keeping everybody together and doing what we need to do. But, specifically Pam Cooksey has done a fantastic job in our city legal department, and Ben and Parks. I know you mentioned all of those. I think without everyone working together, we could never get to this point to bring an amenity to Des Moines like no other. And we're just getting started on it. We've got a lot of work to do, as Scott said, and we're going to continue to do this. Unless there's no other comments, I'll move 50A, B, and C.
And I just want to add one thing. You're absolutely right, Joe. And for those of us that have had the experience, literally from our business lives to whatever, and trying to figure out how to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers, it is occasionally a struggle unlike anything anyone would ever experience in their lifetime. We've been working on levies and that sort of thing to get agreements, quite frankly, since the 80s. And here we are today. We hope that we're close to getting some of those issues, not directly related to this, but actually part of it. So thanks again to everybody, and Joe, your comments are point on. Unless anybody else has anything, let's go ahead and vote.
Your Honor, that's 6 yes, motion carries.
Mayor, if I could just real quick.
Yep.
Just for those that may be listening from other communities, we'd be very appreciative if they would move it along as well so we could get moving on the new board.
All right. Thank you. We're now going to come to the communications and reports and requests to speak. It looks like this evening our first speaker is Adam Callanan.
Hello, my name is Adam Callanan. I use he, him pronouns. I'm going to be talking about the Conley contract that has come up and been pushed back and back.
Adam, would you like to
starting-
give your address, please?
Sorry, what?
Okay. Adam, could you give us your address, please?
All right, the person before me that spoke on item 48 didn't have to give it, but if I have to, I will give it.
What?
Can you give us the zip code or something, I think?
The rules don't, the council wants to vote to suspend the rules. The rules say it's an address.
Okay. Do we want to suspend the rule on this?
Give us our address.
I know.
He gave it to us last time.
I think the thing is that we need to look at it and not do it individually, or if we want to change and address it. You've given your address now, so going forward, I would look at just doing the zip code. If that's agreeable, we can have that discussion on a separate
Well,
issue.
and I think they have to give their address when they file, so,
Right. So I'm just saying going forward.
I understand.
If we could have another discussion instead of doing it every meeting. So apologize for interrupting.
So go ahead, Adam, you'll get your time. Go ahead.
All right. Sorry. Yes. So in January of 2020 was the initial short-term contract with Conley. Came up, was not planned to be a long-term thing. Then September that year, DMPD, among other people, evaluated the contract and unanimously signed off on it, and exempted it from the. Was also that month exempted from the normal proposal request process. In 2020 of October then, on the consent agenda, Conley was awarded the $250,000 contract. And so throughout that whole time, the first year of that contract, no public comments were taken, nothing like that was taken. Then in July of 2021, council here planned a $300,000 expansion of that same contract, again on the consent agenda, so that public comment could not be given. And what we saw then is that emails were released showing that he'd been sending racist, graphic, and violent things to Police Chief Dana Wingert and other public officials. And since then, it's also come out that he was using his role as a public security guard in this building to pursue charges against people who he got into like arguments with, which is bizarre, and to me it takes him as a layer up, because now people know if they come here and get in like a confrontation with security, they're going to have somebody, a CEO of a company, pushing DMP to lobby, pushing DMPD for charges against them, which is just wildly inappropriate. And it's just really alarming that we keep seeing these things that become these controversies start out on the consent agenda. This started out on the consent agenda in 2020. There was no time for public comment. people knew that Conley was saying racist and violent things back then. I know I've had private conversations, it was not as public, and council needs to start taking things off the consent agenda so that we can figure out things before they explode and become public catastrophes, because that's not good for anybody. So let's start taking public comment on things that people know about and want to talk about, because again and again we see things that could have just been solved a lot easier.
John Noble.
Hello, my name is John Noble, he, him. I was here, initially I signed up to talk about democracy was the subject I had, but after the news that we all saw that Adam talked about the Conley Group.
Could we have your address, please, John?
I wasn't aware we had to give the address. You didn't have to give the address. Do I need to give the address?
That's apparently the
Yeah.
legal department has said that's our rule, and we have to abide by it until we change it, and I think we're going to look forward to doing that.
If I filed with the address, I need to give the address?
I'm sorry?
If I filed, when I signed up to speak, I gave the address, though.
That's true.
The rules say there's supposed to be an address, but you need to
Attached.
You need to be consistent.
Yep.
So-
I believe that Adam gave his, we need to have you give yours.
Sure, I'm at 2515 45th Street in Des Moines. So
Thank you.
I'm here to, like I said, if I could have my time, talk about the safety concerns that we all saw with the recent article. I will tell you, it is chilling to see the phrase that this individual, I don't remember the exact phrase, but is pushing for me to be arrested or wants me to be convicted. Suffice it to say, I want to see Mr. Noble convicted. That was chilling to me. But there are bigger concerns about safety here with the Conley Group. There are concerns about racism. There are concerns if you are a trans or gender nonconforming person about the disrespectful comments that he made about those members of our community. These are folks beyond one individual who do not feel safe in this community. I acknowledge that there are members of this council who have said that they want to end the contract, that they think that that's a matter of urgency. There are also members of the council, including my own representative, Bill Gray, who have not said that they want to end the contract. So I would urge you to speak up. I would urge other individuals to speak up as well. It's disappointing to see a lack of concern for constituent safety. It's one of the many reasons I cannot and will not be voting for you this year. It's concerning to me to see a council that doesn't seem concerned about safety of residents. But we've seen that time and time again. I've gone out to the homeless camps, the houseless camps in Des Moines, and those eviction notices on the trees do not signal that this is a council or a city that cares about safety. With what's gone on with the Conley Group, with the suppression of people's voices, with people not being given an online option to speak right now in the middle of a pandemic, this is not a council that is concerned about safety. So I welcome further movement on removing the Conley Group, but I also want to encourage a push for real public safety in this community, because the community has been out here again and again and again to talk to all of you about what public safety looks like to us, and every single one of you have not provided real options to us, and that's disappointing.
All right, that concludes. Yep, thank you.
I'll move to receive and file, excuse me. I'll move to receive and file comments 51A and B.
All right, it's been moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any objection? Hearing none, they all pass. That kind of brings us to the conclusion of our meeting this evening. I would also like to tell everybody, next Saturday, the 18th, we're going to have the mayor's bike ride. And so those who would like to see our trails and get out and get a little exercise, and let's hope it's a nice day to get out for the annual mayor's bike ride. Generally, we do it in the spring, in the April kind of time frame, but this year we put it off till now. So we would encourage people to get out and celebrate our trail system and the hard work by our Parks Department. I'd also just like to acknowledge that an individual member of our community whose family has long supported everything from the beauty of Fleur Drive to downtown to the department over at the Botanical Center, the Asian Gardens, as well as what formerly was a road race in downtown that we called the Rouen Grand Prix, and downtown Des Moines Incorporated, and the hard work that the family has done. The community, and let's hope that future generations and all of you out here sort of watch the example by, an individual like this. It was in the paper, I believe, and if not, will soon be, that John Rouen III has passed away. And so as we think about him and we think about the city and future generations, that family has been one that often is outspoken, but has always stepped up and done things to help improve our city. And we want to thank them for it and thank John Rouen III for his contribution to that during his lifetime. So with that, thank you all for coming down this evening, and let's stay safe, stay healthy, protect our families, protect our fellow workers, and do the right thing with this pandemic going on. Thank you for being here. This meeting's adjourned.